Terry Barber is a best-selling author and founder of Lighthouse Catholic Media. Jesse Romero is a retired law enforcement officer, a former kickboxing champion with a master's degree in theology. And together, they share a passion for evangelization and PhDs in common sense. You're listening to The Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio. To join the show, call 888-526-2151. Here's Terry and Jesse.
Mother Angelica once said, "Those who tell you the truth love you. Those who tell you what you want to hear love themselves." Pull up a chair. We're going to tell you the truth because we love you. Pour yourself some coffee. We've got some great topics we'd like to discuss with you in this coffee shop talk.
Amen.
We've got a good friend of the show, Mark McElroth. Mark lives in Orange County, and he's very involved in men's groups out there in evangelizing Catholic men. He's also very involved in the pro-life movement in Orange County in Southern California. Mark, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show.
Terry, Jesse, great to be with you, brothers. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
Hey, we're excited about something that's happening this Saturday around the country. There's about over 200 rallies that are taking place this Saturday all over the country. Can you tell us about these rallies? What are they? And tell us about your rally that you're organizing in Orange County.
Well, Jesse, thanks again for having us on this opportunity to share the good news of these rallies and the real impact that they're taking place in our everyday lives. These are the protestpp.com rallies, and the purpose is to draw people's attention to the really the evil that takes place in the Planned Parenthood and their affiliate clinics. What a horrible way to describe them. But these places where abortions take place, and then human body parts are harvested from the abortions, and then that supply chain is managed, and then those things are sold for profit.
Sick.
I think we all remember David DeLayden and the
Sure.
Center for Medical Progress.
You bet.
Did a great job of the undercover investigation that brought that to light 18 months ago. And just a spontaneous grassroots organizations popped up all across the country, and those rallies started. And this Saturday on February the 11th, the Feast of Our Lady of Lourdes, if you can imagine that. These rallies will be taking place. We have over 250 taking place countrywide, over 100 in California. Here in Southern California, we have one in Pasadena, we have one in Glendora, we have one in Los Angeles, and I'm proud to say we have another one in Orange County in front of the Planned Parenthood on Tustin in Orange, California.
Wonderful.
So this rally starts at 9 a.m., prayer, praise, and procession, and then after an hour of prayerful preparation, then we go into rally to protest. And we'll have a tremendous program of speakers that will rally up the crowd and fire them up and activate them to call on our governments at every level to defund, not only at the federal level, but also at the state, and more importantly, the county, the city, and most specifically, the school boards.
Well said. Mark, if I was a listener right now going, where's one close to me? How can they find out where that list of over 250 locations are going to be so they can participate in this protest?
There's a very convenient website with a locator tool.
Good.
It's www.protestpp.com. Again, that's protestpp.com. You go there, hit the locator anywhere in the country. I'm happy to say that, everyone from coast to coast, there's something
Awesome.
for someone to gather and let our voices be heard.
Fantastic.
Mark, I'm boggled. I'm on the website right now, and I'm looking here that Planned Parenthood receives $553 million from taxpayers. That's 43% of their annual budget, and $430 million of it comes from the federal government. And we know what that's for. That's fun. Although they say, it's not used directly for an abortion, that's what's called fungible money, where they can move it around and use it as they see fit. And the fact of the matter is, they're forcing us, people of faith, to pay for the killing of innocent babies, and not only that, selling their body parts. Mark, you know what? I'm really glad you're out there. If I've never told you this before, I'm glad we're on the same team, because
Amen.
It takes people like you, it takes men like you to stand up in the public square, to stand up for Jesus. Mark, what do you see in the future in terms of the benefits of having a Supreme Court justice that's pro-life. What do you see this doing for the pro-life movement?
Well, I think every one of us that's been engaged in this work knows that there's an amazing movement that has swelled up, particularly in the last 18 months since these videos were first released. And again, we can't give David Daleiden enough credit for the heroic courage of going undercover into the belly of the beast to present himself as an ally to the enemy. He's almost like a spy behind enemy territories. And somehow he was managed to maintain his interior strength and fortitude and focus that only came through his spiritual preparation and arming himself with the Holy Spirit every day through Mass and sacramental life to be able to walk into those evil places, to capture the necessary data on film, to bring it to light so that he could share it through the internet and through every possible method of social media, so that the conscience of the nation that had grown lax through 40 plus years of abortion, this young man, like a David with 5 stones, has rallied the nation, and we've risen up. I've never seen anything galvanize the grassroots movement of pro-life in the last 20 years like this. It's crazy. This young man's a hero.
Amen. Mark, I agree. I agree. Keep going. Go ahead, brother. Keep going.
I think this young man, we all owe it to him to give 1 or 2 hours of our time to come out and just stand, to pray, to be present, to hold a sign, to chant, defund, now. I mean, this guy, we owe him everything because our unborn, brothers and sisters' lives have been spared. People who were going into abortion clinics have turned around and gone the other way because people are on the streets for the 40 Days for Life rally that maybe they wouldn't have been had they not seen those videos. Congress people have held hearings.
Yeah. Mark,
Congress
let me jump in there.
I
want to say something about David as well. You just sparked something in my mind. David Daleiden, and most people don't realize he's a practicing Catholic, and so is Lila Rose. These are 2 young adult Catholics that they remind me of David versus Goliath. These 2 young adult Catholics that have their different apostolic works or different apostolates. Both of them. I mean, Lila Rose just came out also. She did a sting operation as well and put out some videos as well. David Daleiden and Lila Rose, they remind me of Joshua and Caleb in the book of Deuteronomy, when all the Israelites were telling Moses, you know what, we can't go into the promised land because there's giants over there and they're going to beat us up. And you have 2 young people, Joshua and Caleb, says, no, we're going to go in there and we're going to defeat those giants. I look at David Daleiden and Lila Rose as the modern-day Joshua and Caleb saying, you know what? Planned Parenthood, they look like giants and they're well-funded. We're going to take them down because we're on God's team. That's just my 2 cents.
Well said, Jesse. Well said.
That's a great observation, and we owe these young people, and they motivate us, and they get other young people going. So these rallies rose up 18 months ago. Here in Orange County, our first one was in August of 15. We had 2 subsequent rallies. They drew thousands of people, got people activated. Again, they're taking place all over the country. And I think that helped motivate people in this election cycle, which was so critical. And again, going into that election night in November, every one of us felt like we were the Patriots with no chance to win the game. But then election night, we just came from behind. We caught that pass. We kept it in fair territory. We moved the chains, and then we brought it into overtime, and then boom, we won.
Yeah.
Well, that election has had consequences. And the most recent one, obviously, is the nomination of Judge Gorsuch, who's going to be God willing, confirmed, and will be a Supreme Court justice who will replace Justice Scalia, God rest his soul. And then we'll see whatever else happens, in terms of the Supreme Court. But more importantly, not only the courts, but I am just so inspired by the Congress and its voting to defund Planned Parenthood.
That's right.
I'm looking forward to the Senate doing the same thing. Jody Ernst at the March for Life committed that she would be introducing that legislation, and the Senate will be voting on it. We assume that will pass. And then President Trump has committed to signing and defunding the, federal budget of Planned Parenthood, $500+ million. But that's only the beginning. These funds get into Planned Parenthood and their affiliates from every level of government. So we got to keep focus on them at whatever level we are. Here in Orange County, it's in the county of Orange with the health budget that comes from the county. But for me, guys, it's the school boards, because what they're doing in the schools is absolutely unconscionable. They're brainwashing our kids with this pro-sex agenda and this family planning, curriculum that they put out. And that I'm so excited that Betsy DeVos was nominated and successfully seated as the Secretary of Education yesterday. There's something happening in this country. We got a lot to be excited about.
Amen. Mark, before I let you go, I always like to point out whenever we talk about pro-life that there is mercy through Jesus Christ. Anyone who's had an abortion, I want to recommend them to Project Rachel or the Priest for Life with our good friend Father Frank Pavone, because there is mercy. Anyone who's had an abortion, that they can get mercy and forgiveness through Jesus Christ. Go to confession, and I would encourage people. Before I let you go, Mark, I know you have a little plug for a movie, and it's kind of tied in, called Rebellion, the untold story of the French Revolution. We're going to be showing it Friday, the 17th of February, here at the Sacred Heart Chapel. You want to give us a little plug why people should come see that movie at the Sacred Heart Chapel on the 17th?
Absolutely. That film, The Hidden Rebellion, tells the story of the Vendée uprising in France in the late 18th century, when ordinary people rose up in counter-revolt to the French Revolution.
That's right.
Terrible evils, modernism, secularism, all of the revolutionary mindset that's polluted the Marxist-Leninism, all of that philosophy is rooted in that time period. And this filmmaker, Daniel Robardin, a French-American.
Let me interrupt you, brother.
Labor of love.
We want you to come to that. Just show up at the Sacred Heart Chapel on the 17th. We'll be right back after a quick break. Thanks again, Mark.
Back to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio. Want to join the conversation? Call 888-526-2151. Now here's Terry and Jesse.
Hopeless is not a word in God's vocabulary.
Amen.
There was one word that our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ used often, and the word was hypocrites. He used that word often. What's the word hypocrisy mean according to Webster's dictionary? It means this: the practice of professing standards and belief contrary to one's real character or actual behavior. We're going to show you right now, in their own words, acts of hypocrisy right now. We're going to pray 3 very short clips on the issue of immigration, okay? And we want you to hear them for yourself. The first one's going to be Hillary Clinton. The next one is going to be Bill Clinton. And the last one will be Bill Clinton. And they're going to be juxtaposed with Donald Trump's statements. Notice the way they sound identical, but of course, when President Trump says the same thing that the Clintons say, he's demonized. When the Clintons talk about it, they're praised. Engineer, play the clips.
We do not want to do anything to encourage more illegal immigration into this country.
We have to stop the inflow of illegals coming into our country.
Mexican government's policies are pushing migration north.
The Mexican government is much smarter, much sharper, much more cunning, and they send the bad ones over because they don't want to pay for them. They don't want to take care of them.
Look, I voted numerous times when I was a senator to spend money to build a barrier to try to prevent illegal immigrants from coming in.
We will build a wall. It will do what it's supposed to do. Keep illegal immigrants out.
If they've committed transgressions of whatever kind, they should be obviously deported.
And some of these people are causing tremendous problems. All you have to do is look at the crime wave. If I'm elected, they're going to be out of there day one.
I voted for border security, and some of it was a fence. I don't think we ever called it a wall. Maybe in some places it was a wall.
We're going to have a border. It's going to be a real border.
Secure our borders with technology, personnel, physical barriers if necessary. We need to have tougher employer sanctions.
We have a country, we have to have borders. We have borders, we have to have laws. We either have a country or we don't.
Wow. I don't know about you, but this is kind of personal for me because anybody with common sense, for example, if you're wondering about myself and Terry, okay, we're totally for legal immigration.
Absolutely.
Totally. We're not for illegal immigration. That's right. Heck, I'll be honest, I wouldn't even be here if it was not for legal immigration. You know why? because my parents came here legally from Mexico in the late 1950s. I'm a first-generation Mexican-American in this country. And so I'm the recipient of legal immigration. Anybody is totally for legal immigration. Sure. Now, these videos, I mean, this is a hot button issue. The interest on immigration today, it seems to be somewhat of a contradiction, because here we see when the Clintons talk about it, they're praised, they're applauded. But when President Trump says the exact same thing, he's demonized. Now, I'm going to just take it to the pro-life issue here, and then I'll toss it over to Terry. Here's something that I think about, in my own heart as a Catholic Christian, about the issue of immigration. It's kind of a contradiction, because today there's a far greater number of potential immigrants who are denied entrance into America at what could be termed the womb gate, okay? Since 1973, the potential immigrants that were denied entrance into America from the womb numbers about 56 million people. That's my take.
And I think that's a great point, and I think nobody thinks like that. But Jesse and Terry, right on. You're spot on, Jess. I just want to let the Pope join in on this conversation. Pope Francis says this: every country has a right to control its borders, who comes and who goes. Francis said Friday. And he said the countries at risk from terrorism or such things have even a more right to control them more. So when I say that, that's what Pope Francis said. So again, we're not talking about being again, in other words, it's illegal immigration is what our concern is, because we want the safety of our people. I don't know about you, but I want my wife and family not to have problems with somebody coming in illegally that has a terrorism aspect, or even illegally coming in because they're a thug. They're going to commit crimes like the ones up in San Francisco where they murdered a family when they were touring San Francisco. They shouldn't have been here. So I'm sure those people that had their relatives killed probably would say, let's stop this illegal immigration because it was personal. Just like what Jesse said. I can't say what Jesse said. My parents have already been here for generations. But in Jesse's case, think about this. Jesse Romero's parents came from Mexico in the late 50s legally, had their family, and last time I looked, but the Romeros are not, they came in legally. They've got jobs. They had their families. This is what our country is built on. I'm against it. I'll say it, and some people say, you can't say that. I'll say it anyway. People that come in and do harm in our country, they're not welcome, in my opinion. And as a Christian, I will say this, that I love everybody, but that doesn't mean I have to invite a thug into my living room that could do harm for me. That's my take.
Terry, I thank the Lord that my 4 siblings, they're all givers to our country and not takers. And again, we just learned that from my parents, the work ethic that they brought from Mexico. My mom and dad had the work ethic of John F. Kennedy, where John F. Kennedy said, don't think about what this country can do for you. Think about what you can do for this country. That's what my parents taught their 5 kids. And I thanks be to God that my siblings and myself, we want to give back to this country instead of taking from it. Here's one other thing that I'll say just from my heart, okay?
Yeah.
Personally, in fact, there was a good article. We talked about it last week. It was called The Migrant Crisis, Compassion, and Common Sense, where the article basically said, it was from Crisis Magazine. There's always outstanding information from Crisis Magazine.
Amen.
Basically, the article said that immigration can never be an effective or a significant way to alleviate suffering in the world. In other words, we have to help people where they live. We have to help them there. That's their homeland. People don't like to be displaced halfway around the world in a new country where they don't understand the customs, the culture, the language. They want to be helped where they're comfortable, in their comfort zone. And this is what we have to do. Instead of ripping people off halfway across the world and shuffling them from one country to another, we have to help them where they live. And that's what we have to do. And the only country that's even moving in that direction is the United States.
You know, Jesse, what you just said, the Iraqi bishop said exactly the same thing you just said. We want to stay in Iraq as Christians. We've been there almost 2,000 years. I wish I had 3 hours to talk about this topics with you. We don't. So you need to go to our Twitter account to read all these articles, especially this interview with an Iraqi bishop. Man, I tell you, that guy's got a PhD in common sense coming right from where it's all happening in Iraq. Go to the Terry Jesse Show or go to CatholicRC.org or JesseRomero.com. I want to make a plug for this because Lent is coming up in a couple of weeks. Many of you people have gotten Jesse Romero's CD, Why the Ashes, where he explains the biblical roots of Ash Wednesday. Now, I'm going to do this right now. You might say, what? You're crazy, Terry. I want someone to get 1,000 copies and just go out on Ash Wednesday and stick them in the back of churches like we do at Lighthouse and just have people pick up and listen so that hundreds and hundreds of people will understand why they have ashes on their forehead. And here's my kicker. Here's my tick. You can get 1,000 copies at 85 cents a CD. What? How are you going to do that? I'm going to do it because I got volume, all right? 1,000 copies. Or if you just want 2 copies, send us $10 for the shipping and handling and making them. Call 877-526-2151 if you want to get those CDs on Why the Ashes. And by the way, for those who like Steve Ray, every month we have him on the radio and Catholic Answers has him on, and he's such a great guy. I want to give you his conversion CD, whether you want it on DVD or CD. Steve Ray is a fantastic power preacher. We have him on all the time. He's a convert. I think it would relate to a lot of people. Call 877-526-2151 and get Steve Ray's Finding the Fullness of Faith, or Jesse Romero CDs on Why the Ashes. If you want Jesse Romero to come to your parish, you go to jesseromero.com. He speaks in English and Spanish, which I don't. I only speak the English. If you want me to come and talk on evangelization, which I'm going to be in Hemet this weekend, doing a power house of evangelization there all Saturday, call me at 877-526-2151. And what we talked about, this movie, The Rebellion, The Untold Story of the French Revolution, that's going to happen at the Sacred Heart Chapel February 17th at 7 p.m. We're just telling people to show up. So if we have a full house, I bought a bunch of chairs to set them up. So you're welcome to come. Bring your kids. This movie, yes, you can bring your kids to the movie house. They're going to ask for a donation to help support the people who put the movie on, Rebellion. But it's an untold story of the French Revolution. I'll leave you a teaser. Guess what percentage of people that were killed during the Revolution were peasants? 74%. Oh, I thought this was about the highfalutin people. You're going to find out when you watch this movie at the Sacred Heart Chapel on the 17th. Your eyes will be opened about the French Revolution. You're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show. We've got some really good material. When we come back on the break, we're going to talk about an Iraqi bishop who's saying immigration preference for victims of the genocide. We're going to cover that, and Father George Rutler, and much, much more. Jesse, where are you going to be this weekend, brother?
This weekend, February 10th, 11th, and 12th, I'm going to be at St. Mary's Catholic Church in Remsen, Iowa. I'm going to be doing a parish mission in English, so let people know on your social networks that I'm going to be out there. If your family members in Remsen, Iowa, St. Mary's Catholic Church. Next weekend, I'll be here in Phoenix. I'll be local. February 18th and 19th, I'll be here in Phoenix at St. Paul Catholic Church with the Catholic Renewal Ministries. So I hope to see all you Phoenicians next week.
And if you want to get Steve Ray's DVD, Finding the Fullness of the Faith, go ahead and call. It's free. Just pay the shipping. 877-526-2151. May God bless you. We'll be right back after this quick moment.
This is Bishop David O'Connell, and you're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio.
Back to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio. Want to join the conversation? Call 888-526-2151. Now here's Terry and Jesse.
This is the Lord's Gym. We are your spiritual fitness trainers. Today, Archbishop Fulton Sheen, here's what he tells us. By the way, there's a book called Through the Year with Fulton Sheen. I have it on my webpage, jesseromero.com. If you want to see what Fulton Sheen says every day, I have a link on my webpage, jesseromero.com. It's the daily quote from Fulton Sheen to inspire you. Here's what he says today, February 8th. I'll just quote the relevant portion. Archbishop Sheen says this: when we compare ourselves with other people, we seem good. When we compare ourselves with God, we are nothing. Close
That's
quote.
great.
That's from Fulton Sheen.
I love it.
That's kind of sobering. We want to talk about the Iraqi bishop. There was an interview that he did. He's a Chaldean Catholic archbishop in Iraq, and he was interviewed by a magazine called Crux Magazine. And he's been an outspoken voice on behalf of Middle East Christianity, thanks be to God. And he was asked questions about the Trump administration, about the executive order on refugees, all kinds of stuff. So we'll give you little sound bites. And we're also going to interface another article that was written by one of the most thoughtful, intelligent, highly educated priests that I've ever run across. His name's Father George Rutler. It's basically, it's his take as a pastor on immigration. So if you want to call up, if you have any questions on the topic, 888-526-2151, 888-526-2151. Let me just answer one question here, and then I'll flip it over to Terry. One question. Archbishop, do you agree that security concerns warrant the new U.S. refugee policy? He says this: first, it's terrible to live with terrorism. My country lives with terrorism daily. And if the United States wants to have a strong vetting process, I can understand and appreciate that. He says also, obviously, in the era of terrorism, people are concerned about who is entering their country, and that is understandable.
Here's the next one. What do you make of the protests against President Trump's refugee order? He says, from my perspective in Iraq, I wonder why all these protesters were not protesting in the streets when ISIS came to kill Christians and other minority groups. They were not protesting when tens of thousands of displaced Christians in my archdiocese had to care for them since 2014 and received no financial assistance from the U.S. government or the UN. There were no protests when the Syrian Christians were only let in at a rate that was 20 times less than the percentage of their population in Syria. Archbishop, why don't you really tell me what you think? I don't know if you agree, but I mean, wow, he's straight shooting. Again, it's on our Twitter account. I want you to read it all because, I mean, this next one, Jesse, before I pass it to you, I got to say this.
Yeah, read the next sentence.
I know this
Terry.
next sentence is the killer.
Yeah,
I do not understand why some Americans are now upset that the many minority communities have faced a horrible genocide will finally get a degree of priority in some manner. And I'll leave it this way. I mean, that's powerful. The bishop is saying that, not Jesse or Terry. I'm going to quote the bishop. He says, I would also say this: all those who cry out that this is a Muslim ban. Now remember, this isn't Jesse or Terry, it's the bishop. He says, all those who cry out this is a Muslim ban, especially now that it has been clarified that it is not, should understand clearly that what they do they are hurting we Christians, specifically putting us at greater risk. The executive order has clearly affected Christians and others as well as Muslims. So I just want to ask you if you agree or disagree with the bishop, or you agree with the Holy Father. I happen to agree with Pope Francis about immigration here. Call us at 888-526-2151.
I'll tell you why this archbishop has a lot of credibility with me personally.
Why?
Okay?
Yeah, tell us.
Because he lives there.
Yeah.
We don't. You know, a lot of people try to come off as experts and make these statements. And let's just be honest. We live in our nice,
comfy,
secluded suburbs in the West, in Europe and in the U.S., and we try to sound like experts on Islamic terrorism and immigration. This archbishop lives there. He's an Iraqi Christian. And so somebody like him, his words carry a lot more weight for me as a Catholic Christian than somebody in the West who would try to come off as a pseudo-expert. Again, my heart goes out to them because he has seen firsthand the ravages of terrorism. Here's also what he says about the same question that Terry talked about. Right. What do you make of the protests against President Trump's refugee order? He says at the bottom of the article, he says, most Americans have no concept of what it's like to live as a Yazidi or Christian or other minority as ISIS invaded. Our people had the option to flee, to convert, or to be killed. and many were killed in the most brutal ways imaginable.
Wow.
But there were none of these protests then of ISIS's religious tests. In other words, the Archbishop is saying, why was everybody silent? All the West was silent. All the liberal progressives were silent as ISIS was placing a religious test in Iraq to see who they were going to kill. And they were going after Christians and other minority groups. He also says one more thing here. He says, our people lost everything because of their faith. They were targeted for their faith, just like the Yazidis and others too. Now these protesters are saying that religion should not matter at all, even though someone was persecuted for their faith. Even though the persecution based on religion is one of the grounds for refugee status in the UN Treaty on Refugees. Here I have to say, it is really unbelievable. The Archbishop is basically saying, is this microphone on?
Well, Jesse, I'm going to tell us why people don't protest against ISIS religious tests. And I'll just be honest with you. You're going to get mad when I say it, so turn your microphone up. You're going to hear it. Here it comes. Because they're afraid of ISIS. Because ISIS is going to go after them. Not us. We're peace-loving people. That's why. Okay, I said it. Now, if you agree with me or disagree, call me. 888-526-2151. I think people are wimps when it comes to saying things when they know there's a bully on the other side. They're not going to talk to the bully because they're going to go talk to a peace-loving person and say, hey, you're wrong. Oh, you want me to go talk to the bully? I won't do that. Okay, that's my take. I might be wrong, but I think I'm right, Jess. What are your thoughts?
Terry,
no, it's
that's
true.
That's common sense Catholicism. Here's what the Archbishop says once again. I'm just busting up here because of Terry's candor. I love it. That's why I'm glad he's my partner. We're like Batman and Robin. I don't know who's Batman. I don't know who's Robin. Some days we switch. But regarding that question, what do you make of the protests against President Trump's refugee order? Here's another thing that he answers. He says this, but it is very hard for me to understand why comfortable people in the West think that those who are struggling to survive against genocide and whose communities are at extreme risk of disappearing completely should not get some special consideration. He's talking about the Catholic Christians and the Orthodox, we are an ancient people on the verge of extinction because of our commitment to our faith. Then he says, will anybody protest for us? God bless you, Archbishop. I hope the world is hearing this.
Jesse, I'm amazed by this article. Again, everybody, we can't take everything he said on the air. You need to get the article. Go to the Terry Jesse Show or JesseRomero.com or CatholicRC.com. Get these articles because it's powerful to read. I can't read them all. I mean, it's touching to me. I want to mention this weekend I am going to be at the Knights of Columbus Council 5528 in Hemet, California, all day on February 11th, power preaching on evangelization. So if you're in that neck of the woods, I'd love to have you come, and I'd love to meet with you. If you want me to come to your parish, call me at 877-526-2151. You know, Jess, I wish we had the zeal that the Christians in the Middle East have, and I know some of us do, but we need to get more and more. And I'll tell you one way I've found after 40 years of being involved in apostolic work, recordings have motivated people, and that's why I'm encouraging people. It used to be cassette tapes, 40 years ago. Now they're CDs. Now they're downloads. Go on the CatholicRC.org website and get some downloads. Matter of fact, talking about downloads, you can hear Terry and Jesse on an iPhone app or an Android app for free. You can take us anywhere in the world and still listen to our shows. Just put The Terry Jesse Show. But if you want to get Jesse's CD on Why the Ashes and you want to evangelize Catholics, because we have to fire the troops up, get that CD by just calling 877-526-2151. And I'll get you 2 copies. You just pay the shipping. But if you want 1,000 copies to really unload people with why they are getting ashes, it's 85 cents a CD. That's all it costs when I can get 1,000 at a time. And again, Steve Ray's conversion story, one of my favorite converts, you can get that DVD by calling 877-526-2151. And by the way, Jess, before I turn it over, we just got a little vacancy here at the Catholic Resource Center at our chapel and our offices. If there's a Catholic apostolate that needs an office for rent, they could be right alongside the Terry and Jesse Show here in Covina, and we don't charge a lot on rent. So I'm just making it verbally. If you're an apostolate and you need an office space next to a beautiful Sacred Heart Church, call me at 877-526-2151, and I'll talk to you about that.
I love what the Archbishop from Iraq said when he was asked, what would you like to see changed in this executive order from Donald Trump? He says this: it is not good if people think there is a priority only for the Christians. That would make us a target by the Muslims. But clearly, we know this is not the actual case with the policy anyhow. He says, the priority status was announced for all religious minorities in my country. And the Archbishop says this: I am happy an American president finally realizes there are Christians and other religious minority groups here who need help. This is an important step forward, and it means a good deal to the displaced people here. We have felt we were forgotten by the United States until now. Well, what's the Archbishop saying? I'll just interpret it for you, okay?
Yeah.
He's basically, Archbishop Bashar Wardi, the Chaldean Catholic Archbishop, is saying President Obama forgot about us Christians for 8 years, and now President Trump realizes that we are being wiped out of extinction. That's what he just said.
We're going to come back after a quick break. Don't turn the dial. You're here with the Terry and Jesse Show. We always say we're too blessed to be stressed, too anointed to be disappointed. After a quick moment back, we'll be back in.
This is Dr. Scott Hahn, and you are listening to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio.
Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord, my God, you are great indeed. Psalm 104, that was today's responsorial psalm at Holy Mass. We've got two articles in front of us. You can get them from our Twitter account. You can get it from CatholicRC.org, JesseRomero.com. The article is it's an interview from a very brave, this guy's a man's man, a Chaldean Catholic Archbishop, Bashar Wardi, and he's asked questions about the refugee policy, about President Trump, about ISIS, etc., and he's very candid in his explanations. We have a second article. We'll touch upon a few statements by Father George Rutler. He's from the Archdiocese of New York. He talks about immigration, and he's one of the most thoughtful priests I've ever run across. But I do have to say this, that what we're saying right now has been backed up by the last two popes, okay? Pope Francis declared, in his own words, quote, every country has the right to control its borders, close quote. It's an article that it came out January 22nd, 2017. It was an interview that was done with Pope Francis, and he basically has talked about the issue of immigration, and he says, yep, fair game. Every country has the right to protect their borders. He's not the only pope that said that. Pope Benedict XVI, his predecessor, said the same thing on immigration.
Yep.
He said this. I'll give you the date if you want to look it up. You say, you're making this up. October 28th, 2010. Pope Benedict said the following. He said this: states have the right to regulate migration flows and to defend their own borders, always guaranteeing the respect due to the dignity of each and every human person. And he says, immigrants have the duty to integrate into the host country, respecting its laws and its national identity. The last two popes, this one and his predecessors, are saying exactly what these two articles say, and really my position and Terry's position on this topic. We have no problem with immigration.
That's right.
Okay?
We want
I'm
it.
a son of immigrants.
Exactly.
And Terry, maybe a couple of generations
That's
back,
right.
he's also a son of immigrants. I do have a problem. Look at the adjective that people always never use when you talk about this topic. The adjective, illegal. I have a problem with anything illegal. Illegal robbery, illegal gambling, anything that's illegal, guess what? I have a problem with it as a Christian.
And I'll say one more thing, Jesse. My grandfather's from Syria. Do I need to say any more? My grandmama's from Lebanon. Guess what? I have relatives there, right? But if they can't get in legally, they can't come in, and I'm with that, even though they're my relatives, because I want order, because I want safety. That's all. You know, Jess, Father George Rutler mentioned this, and he's saying the same thing, but I thought he just said it succinctly in a little paragraph, and I'll just turn it right back to you after this. He says, it's obvious that the indignant demonstrators against this new executive order are funded in no little part by wealthy interests who provoke agitation. These same people have not shown any concern about the neglected Christians seeking refuge from the persecution in the Middle East. In 2016, wait till you hear these statistics, everyone. Write this one down. In 2016, there was a 675% increase in the number of Syrian refugees over the previous year. But while 10% of Syrians' population is Christian, wait for this, listen to this, only 0.5% of Syrian Christians were granted asylum. Okay, those numbers don't add up. What? 1%, or no, 0.5% of Syrian Christians were granted asylum. It is thankworthy that our changed government now wants to redress that. The logic of that policy must not be shouted down by those who screech rather than reason. I love his last line, those who screech rather than reason. Well said, Doctor. I should say Father George Rutler.
Here's what Father Rutler basically said. I'm going to interpret it in common man's language. He basically said this.
Yeah.
Under the President Obama's liberal administration, Muslims had priority and Christians were barely allowed to eke into this country. Okay? That's what happened. There was this discrimination against Christians coming from the Middle East under the Obama administration. Father George Rutler just called it out, but I'm saying it very clearly.
Yeah.
And now he's thanking the Trump administration because he's redressing this injustice. That's what Father Rutler is saying here. Here's another thing that I like what Father Rutler writes in the second paragraph. He says this. He says, at issue is not immigration, but illegal immigration.
Important to say.
Okay? That's what Terry's always
constantly.
But illegal immigration. He says it is certainly manipulative of reason to justify uncontrolled immigration by citing previous generations of immigrants to our shores, all of whom went through the legal process, mostly in the halls of Ellis Island. And then he says, and it is close to blasphemy to invoke the Holy Family as antinomian lawbreaker and refugees, for they went to Bethlehem in obedience to a civil decree requiring tax registration, and they violated no statutes when they sought protection in Egypt. I like the fact that he brings this up because you'll hear a lot of liberal progressives.
That's right.
Yeah, they'll say this. They'll say, there's signs that says, oh, Jesus and Mary were illegal immigrants. You see these signs, you see this on Facebook, you see this on the internet. Oh, the Holy Family were illegal immigrants. Father George Rutler just called them out. He says it's blasphemy to invoke the Holy Family as law-breaking refugees. They were not. He says they went to Bethlehem in obedience to a civil decree requiring tax registration, and they violated no laws when they sought protection in Egypt. So it bugs me. It offends me as a Catholic when people try to use the Holy Family to try to shoehorn in their arguments that we have to have these unfettered open borders that really just satiate the appetites of the New World Order.
Jesse, people have never heard of Father George Rutler. He's one of the great minds in the church. I have a recording of his Crisis in Culture series where he talks about the fall of Rome and then how it corresponds to what's going on in our culture today. If people want his CDs, tell the girls upstairs that Terry just decided to give it away with a discount. You want Crisis in Culture by Father George Rutler. If you want your mind to open up with logic and reason and passion, Father George Rutler's your man. I tell everybody, Crisis in Culture, call 877-526-2151. That's 877-526-2151. And I'll guarantee you, when you listen to those 13 and a half shows, you'll be very educated on the culture that we're in right now. Now, before we leave, I just want to remind you, Jesse Romero's CD on the Why the Ashes, Ash Wednesday's coming up the first of the month. I'll get you a couple copies. You just call 877-526-2151. Why am I giving all this stuff away? I want you to become a radioactive Catholic. I want you to be fired up like those folks in the Middle East who are willing to die for their faith. What? Terry, you're asking me to die? Yes, I am, because I think that's what our Lord asks us. If someone came to you Is there enough evidence to prove that you're a Christian? I hope they can say yes for me, and I hope they can say yes for you. So go ahead and call 877-526-2151. In this short hour, if you want to get a copy of today's show, call us at 877-526-2151 or go online to catholicrc.org and listen to the podcast, or get the iPhone app, and then you could hear it on your phone and take it anywhere. Jess, I'll turn it back to you.
Here's the last thing I'm going to say based on this article by Father George Rutler in his first paragraph. He basically says the two greatest minds of Catholicism, guess who they are? St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas. St. Augustine is known as the greatest church father in the first 1,000 years. And the greatest church, the greatest mind in the second 1,000 years, is called St. Thomas Aquinas. Father George Rutler quotes both of them, and guess what? You can read the article. Both of them believed in border control. Both of them believed in practical protection of tranquility and in border control. The fact of the matter is, these are the giants of the Catholic Church, and they're quoted in the Catechism. If you want to read what they have to say, look at 2241 of the Catechism. The last thing I want to say is this. Terry and me, we exist for one reason here on the show.
Amen.
We aspire to inspire until we expire. And while doing so, we may even perspire. Who knows? And for my friend Rico out there in Southern California, he likes me to say this. Terry and me, we're two nobodies that want to tell anybody that there's somebody that can save everybody. And his name is Jesus.
Amen.
And as St. Bernardine of Siena says, Jesus Christ and the name of Jesus is the glory of preachers. Amen. Terry, take it away.
Jesse, this show, what an honor to be here on Immaculate Heart Radio, folks. We're so blessed. We're too blessed to be stressed, too anointed to be disappointed. And if hope was money, we'd be billionaires. Did you notice today we didn't give our personal opinion? We gave you the Pope. We gave you bishops. We gave you priests. We backed everything up with the Scripture, the Catechism. That's what we do every day. So tell your friends.
We do it every day.
Yeah, tell your friends to tune in to the Terry and Jesse Show Monday through Friday. And if you can't hear us, get that iPhone app, and you can hear us anytime, anywhere. Don't hesitate to start getting all these good CDs and DVDs. Start handing them out to friends and family. We're living right now, folks, in a very exciting time. God has given you. He didn't have you born 500 years ago. He brought you in at this time for a specific job to do. Henry Newman said, God has given you a job that he hasn't given to anybody else. Your job is to do it and do it well. That's what we're hoping we're doing here at the Terry and Jesse Show. We want to get as many people to heaven as possible. We want to show them that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. We want to show people who are not Catholic, come on in. The water's fine. We want to teach you about the Eucharist. We want to teach you about the sacrament of confession. And if you haven't been to confession in a long time and you're waiting for someone to encourage you, go now. Lent is coming up. Go to confession on this Saturday. If you want to get all that good material we're giving away, Finding the Fullness of Faith, Steve Ray's CD or DVD on his conversion. You want to get Jesse Romero's CD on Why the Ashes and learn why every year I get ashes. Why do I do it biblically? Call us 877-526-2151. May God richly bless you and your family.